Welcome to the Career Intelligence Podcast, where we explore how work is changing and how people can navigate their careers in a world shaped by AI, technology, and rapid workforce transformation. I'm your host, Kathleen Dohoney, a career coach and owner of Celtic Career Pros, along with my co-host, Meredith Pasekoff-Dinitz, a career coach and owner of Your Career Happiness. Meredith and I got back from a 3-day conference at the Career Thought Leaders Symposium in San Diego, surrounded by industry experts, recruiters, and other career professionals. But along with a packed schedule of amazing speakers, we did take in a bit of sightseeing. So what did we learn? Well, with the job search or a career transition, there's a lot of noise, such as the use of AI tools, branding, resume hacks, and LinkedIn strategies, and it can feel like you're constantly trying to keep up. We experience the same themes about how work is changing and what actually matters now. So instead of recapping everything, we pulled out the key takeaways that we think will actually help you navigate this changing workforce with more focus and confidence. Let's begin.
Hi, Kathleen. It's great to be here with you. Kathleen and I just got back from a few days in San Diego. We were at the Career Thought Leaders Symposium. And for our episode today, we thought instead of just recapping everything we heard, we wanted to pull out a few key themes that actually matter for you, especially if you're navigating a job search right now or thinking about your next move. And I'll say one thing that really stood out to me was how grounded our conversations felt out there compared to how overwhelmed a lot of our clients feel right now.
Right. And Meredith, I just want to say we had a great time seeing San Diego.
Mm.
So yes, what stood out for me was how consistent those conversations were, even with the different speakers and different topics. There was a lot of the same themes that kept coming up around how work is changing and what actually matters now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the disconnect. What we heard across the conference was actually pretty consistent among the different speakers, but what people are seeing and hearing in their job search feels all over the board.
And that's what made the conference so helpful. It really helped simplify a lot of that. One of the biggest themes that I'd like to touch on was how much work is changing right now. And a lot of it was framed around what was called the fourth industrial revolution, which is the intersection of digital, physical, and even biological technologies. So yes, AI is part of it, but it's also automation, advanced manufacturing, construction, 3D printing, and entire industries evolving because of that. Now, by 2030, 1 trillion, that's 1 trillion will be invested in these technologies.
Amazing.
Right? And one of the biggest takeaways was the growing gap between the skills companies need and what they're finding. So, for example, currently an area of growth, but not enough people, is 3D printing. And they're looking for technicians, prototype or manufacturing engineers, or designers. And what this means is that other jobs will also be needed in these industries, such as marketing, finance, and operations. And a lot of the opportunities that are emerging in the industries, people really don't think about and don't know much about as of today. So ask yourself, can I use my skills, not the job titles, but skills in these various new places?
And I think that's where people get tripped up a lot, right? They assume they're behind or that they need to completely reinvent themselves. But in reality, a lot of the opportunity, to your point, is in how they apply what they already know, just in areas or industries they may not have been considering. Who would have thought 3D printing? That was totally new for me. And sometimes it's just that they haven't even been exposed to those options yet. So to me, it was just like opening my mind to think about what else is going to be out there in the next 5, 10 years.
Quite exciting.
Yeah. Well, I would say another idea that really stood out for me was this idea of being a change maker and not just having the experience, but really being someone who can step into change and actually move things forward. And it doesn't have to be something big or formal. A lot of the time, we're seeing it's people stepping in when something isn't working, taking initiative when no one's really leading it, and helping people get aligned when things feel messy. And I think that's what a lot of people miss. They're already having these moments, they're just not thinking about them as valuable or relevant. And those are often the moments that help you grow, right? People are like, I want a chance to grow, get promoted, stretch myself. You might be doing that, you just don't realize it. So these moments really are going to help do that and open doors to new opportunities.
Yes, and that's what people notice, how someone shows up in those situations and not just quote what their title is. But this is where it starts for people to break down. They have the experience, but they don't know how to position it. So it feels overwhelming. And I think part of that is they're trying to keep up with everything they're hearing, the different advice, different expectations, even social media. And it's hard to know what actually matters. And that's usually when you go straight into tactics.
Like the resumes, LinkedIn, AI, people don't take the time to really step back to evaluate everything and they end up trying to fix the wrong thing.
So that's what came up in the recruiter panel. We had recruiters who kind of told us a little bit about what they see. And what they kept coming back to is how difficult it is when candidates aren't clear, even when they have strong backgrounds, because recruiters don't have the time to figure it out for you. If it's not obvious how your experience fits, they're moving on. It's like everybody has to put every single thing they've ever done all into one document.
I think that's really the part that people underestimate. Clarity doesn't just make you sound better, it makes it easier for someone like the recruiter or the hiring manager to actually make a decision about you and to decide you're the one we want to talk with. And that's really where the work starts. And I know you and I spend a fair amount of time with our clients on this. And we had the opportunity to present at the symposium as well. And our session focused really on helping people understand how to translate their brand discovery into these documents. What we consistently see is that you have the experience, that's not the problem. It's that people lack the clarity. And a simple way that I know we have both approached this when we're working with our clients is to really help them think about getting that clarity by asking some simple questions like, what are you the go to person for? What problems do people trust you to solve? And what do people thank you for? And when they can start answering those questions, that's usually where the patterns start to show up. This is the turning point for a lot of people. I can tell you when I'm working on LinkedIn, for example, the headline, I'll see things like project manager with 10 plus years of experience. But once we've taken the time to go through some of these exercises and to help people get that clarity, it changes to something like project leader known for bringing structure to complex cross functional initiatives. Exact same experience, just a completely different level of clarity. And something else that really stuck with me was this idea of the difference between what you are and who you are. Most people tend to focus on what they are, their title, their experience, their skills. That's the first thing they'll tell us when they come to us. But what actually is going to help you stand out and what people are going to remember is who you are. So the what gets you noticed, but the who you are gets you trusted. And that's really what we're helping clients get to when we work with them. It's not just what they've done, but how they show up and how they create value. Another example that we see all the time is when someone comes in with a lot of experience, it's hard to tell what they want to be known for. They're so used to being that jack of all trades, they can't really sit down and think about, well, what is that? And so, again, once we can clarify that, everything shifts their resume, their LinkedIn, even how they answer interview questions.
Right, Meredith, you can really feel the difference when someone has that clarity. So continuing on with our presentation, what really starts to show up that we talked about was in the interviews. And one thing that came up that I thought was interesting was how often the answers start to sound over rehearsed or scripted, i.e., AI, even when their experience is there. It sounds like generic branding because at that point, it's not about having the perfect answer, it's authenticity. And it's about being able to think and communicate clearly in the moment. A simple way you can make sure you're sounding clear and authentic is to ask yourself, does this sound like me talking? Where's the emotion in this? And could anyone tell this story, again, AI, or is it clearly yours? So in one of our sessions, the presenter even showed examples of this, where someone says, I am a results-driven professional, versus I've spent most of my career helping teams get aligned when things feel messy. So the first one sounds like a script, and the other one sounds like a real person giving their own real-world experience.
Yeah. And I think that's really where the difference shows up, right? Like when someone has that clarity, their answers feel more natural and, to your point, authentic. They're not trying to sound perfect, they're just sounding human. And really, that's where I think you also are going to connect with the interviewers, the hiring manager. Yes, the skills matter, but they want to know how you're going to connect with them and fit into their team. I think what is so important to keep in mind is that AI can either help you or actually work against you. So
Mm.
AI can definitely help you with your execution, but it can't define your direction. And if you're not clear on how you want to position your experience, you can end up with something that sounds great, but it still makes it hard for someone to understand where you fit. So the key here is to remember that AI works best when it's supporting your thinking. It can be that great sounding board to help you prepare your answers. A lot of this work, getting clear, understanding how you show up, how you create value, that usually doesn't happen in isolation. It happens through conversation, whether that's with a colleague, a coach, or someone you trust. Those conversations are still a really important part of this process.
So if you take one thing from all of this, it's not to go learn more tools. It's to understand how work is changing and where you fit within that. And I think something else that came out of this is maybe you select just a few tools that work best for you and your own industry.
And for me, I would say it's to step back and get clear on where you fit and the value you bring before you jump into all of your documents, because that's going to make everything else easier. And honestly, that's what cuts through all of the noise right now. How can you stand out? How can you differentiate yourself and show the value that you bring?
Yeah, thank you. This was a great conference, Meredith. I think what we were able to kind of pull out of this is that, yes, AI is here, but they still need that human, like I say, touch or person to help them guide through that. Pretty exciting as well, with all the different industry changes.
I would agree. I know people are very worried that AI is going to be taking their jobs, and there may be some, but what we learned and just in the conversations, it's going to create so much more. And it can be a great resource, but it shouldn't be the end all for everything.
Right. Thank you.
Kathleen, this was great.
What Meredith and I shared from the conference is that when you step back and look at all of this, the message is actually pretty simple. Work is changing, but the fundamentals of how you show up and create value still matter. The people who can navigate this shift aren't necessarily the ones with the most experience or the most tools. They're the ones who are clear on where they fit and how they contribute. And that's really the takeaway we want to leave you with. Before you go update your resume or try another strategy, take a step back and ask yourself, what do I want to be known for? Because when you have that clarity, everything else from your messaging to your interviews starts to fall into place in a much more natural and effective way. Think about how to use your background versus your title to explore emerging industries. What was solidified with Meredith and I is that human connection and how your ability to showcase your soft skills still matter. If today's conversation resonated with you, this is the kind of work Meredith does with her clients. She primarily works with mid-career professionals who feel successful on paper, but are starting to question what is next, whether that is navigating a job search, going after a promotion, or simply getting clear on what they really want. And if you're ready to take the next step in your own journey, I'm here to help. Through personalized coaching, I support early level to senior professionals in finding a direction, building confidence, and creating a strategy that aligns with who they are and where they want to go. You will find our contact information in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to follow Career Intelligence Podcast and share it with someone who might benefit from the conversation. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Stay curious, keep learning, and keep building your career intelligence.